how do I follow that? I mean, I knew it was coming. I just didn't know that it was going to touch me the way that it did. I'm that bear. There's some distinctions, though. I grew up in this neighborhood. In sixth grade, when I was 11, about 1976, we moved into a house on the corner of 117th and Howe Street. And I went to Mary Our Queen grade school. My mother believed that I was her prophet. She used to come in my room and tell me about her day and ask me what I thought. Sometimes I would be busy playing and listening to her words and just hearing what she had to say. And then I would stop and I would say, I think you should do this. And I would just tell her, not knowing exactly what it was she was sharing with me, not knowing exactly what her outcome might be. Like, I didn't understand all of those things, right? But I did understand a connection that I had to myself at that point. That there was something that I saw that was deeper, right? And I've carried that with me pretty much my whole life. A friend of mine recently told me that I had a deep intuitive spirit. This after connecting her with another friend who was looking to add a second cat to their family because their first cat, they had to move into a new apartment because of a messy situation. And their cat had other cats, but in the new apartment, this cat was not happy. And she would come home from work and the cat would be howling, crying, and then like clinging to her. And she was like, I think I need to get another cat for my cat. And I like heard this, right? Like I felt this. I felt the cat. It's hard to explain to people, right? It sounds weird. How do you feel the cat? And then I thought about another friend who had kittens that she was needing to get rid of. And so I connected the two. And that was when she had said to me, you have such a deep intuitive spirit. This just happened yesterday, y'all. She said, I was just sitting here telling my husband, we need to find a home for this cat. How are we gonna find a home for this cat? And then here I come all up in her DMs saying, look, I have this friend with this cat that needs a cat and you have a cat. And I think I need to connect y'all. Well, guess what? Queenie is going home to Kaczynski today. You can applaud that. That's a happy story. You know, I have never looked at things at face value. I've always connected things to things on a more spiritual level. As far back as I can remember, my mom used to call me her prophet. She used to come into my room and ask me to answer questions about her life, which I did. My mother was born on a reservation in Kashina, Wisconsin. I am first generation born off the reservation and living in this neighborhood back in the 70s and going to a Catholic grade school wasn't that much different than the boarding school that my mom went to. I also had a really deep secret. I knew it at a very young age. I was taught to hide it. I was taught that I couldn't be me, that being me wasn't okay, that being who I was wrong. And I carried that with me all the way up until I was 50. And I think back on this neighborhood and riding my moped up and down these streets, and how I felt when my girlfriends wanted to ride and they would sit on the back and wrap their arms around me. And I was like, I am Elvis Presley in those movies. Like, that's what I thought in my head, right? I wasn't supposed to be giving anybody rides on that moped, but family. And I was consistently getting in trouble by my dad for doing so. But I didn't care because it made me come alive inside, right? It's like that piano or the bear. And I just kept getting further and further away from it. I know that I was on a quest, though, to find myself somehow, that there was something that I needed to figure out about me. I always thought that it was outside of me, though. I always thought there was something out there that was going to give me the answer, just like the bear, right? I got to go to the big city and be this big, wonderful thing. But it wasn't that. But see, I didn't always know what I needed to go back to. I didn't need to go back to this neighborhood, although I've come back here many times and stood in front of that house and seen the changes in the landscape of that yard in front of that house. I've gone to the first house we lived in after I was born, a house my father built, something I didn't even know until many years later, that this house over on Oak Street was a house my dad built with his own hands. And I've gone and stood in front of that house and looked at George the oak tree and Henrietta the crabapple tree that we named as kids. But the answer wasn't there either. What I didn't realize is the answer was here, right? We lost my mom to COVID in 2020. We didn't get to have a funeral because it was in the height of the pandemic. The service today, to me, is holding space for my beautiful mother. And I'm so honored and grateful to have been asked to share my words, to share my insight, to be here as my authentic self. This is just the first half of what I have to say, y'all. And I'm a little over my 7 minutes. But I do want to thank Tom and Lorraine and Juniper and the people who helped to bring this together today. All of the pieces mean something. And this next song is for my mom. I fulfilled one of her wishes in August, and I took her ashes and we spread them in the river on the reservation. I was there with my niece. My brother and sisters were on the phone because they couldn't be there in person. And this song that's going to play now is a song that I know that my mother would have wanted to have played at her funeral, because it was a song that she related to so deeply with her own mother. And so we're going to play that song for you now, and I'll be back.
This morning is a poem by Jay Holm. Seeing this around for some time, but especially this last week after the shootings and murders in Colorado Springs. It's titled Jesus at the Gay Bar. He's here in the midst of it, right at the center of the dance floor, robes hitched up to his knees to make it easy to spin. At some point in the evening, a boy will touch the hem of his robe and beg to be healed, begged to be anything other than this. He will reach his arms out, sweat damp, weary from the dance. He'll cup the boy's face in his hands, and he'll say, "Beautiful child, there is nothing in this heart of yours ever needs to be healed.
I did this to myself. I agreed to do this. I helped select music. I helped select the poem. So I did this to myself. But here's the thing, y'all. Music, I have a soundtrack to my life. From when Freddie Mercury saved me on the B side of Queen's The Game, Don't Try Suicide. Literally, as I was thinking that I needed to end my life, and here Freddie Mercury saved it. Many years ago, I started listening to songs like that Taylor Swift song from a different perspective. The perspective was me singing to me. To most of you, that song sounds like a love song about the moment that someone's feelings for another change. All I knew this morning when I woke is I know something now I didn't before. Well, that's how I felt the morning I woke up after speaking out loud for the first time to myself that I was transgender. I was 50 years old, and I was unleashing a secret I had protected so closely for 5 decades. I was overwhelmed with excitement, fear, wonder, and questions. So many questions. And I'm certain you can imagine I didn't have the answers to many of them. Knowing this would provide me with a great deal of insight later in my journey. I just knew in that moment that I had to hold space for me to be me completely. Little did I know that what I was about to tap into was so much greater than the outside package of myself. I began to think about all the ways my actions and the journey I had taken up to this point was just leading me to this grand revelation, building the confidence to share with everyone I knew who I was, and finally share my story. One might say I was generating at a super high frequency. So many of the ways in which I had held myself back, I now had the center I needed to push through. See, I said earlier that the bear story was synonymous to mine, but there was a distinction. The distinction was I felt something inside, a connection to something so much greater than myself, but I didn't know what it was. I've always known that I was Menominee. I've always known that my mother was born on a reservation. I had been teased about it in grade school almost every day. My dark skin, my unique, exquisite features is what people would say to me. Because see, what I became is what you wanted me to become. I became this hyper beautiful expression of myself, long curly hair, all of the lipstick and the makeup and the everything, the nails done, the rings I would wear, the earrings, all of it. I was the most beautiful drag queen you had ever met. But I was so intensely unhappy. And it wasn't until I said the words out loud and then looked at myself in the mirror the next day and everything had changed. Everything had changed. That journey initially of coming out was not a pleasant one. Being who I was at a conservative university in Bellevue, Nebraska, and openly saying this is who I am was not a pleasant one. Now, there's good things that had come because I had learned to always advocate for myself, and I had a wonderful support system. But I was faced again with the choice of whether or not I should end my life. because of all of the things that I had experienced within that first 3 years of coming out as trans, not because of me, because of what everything outside of me wanted to continue to force me back in that box. Wanted to continue to say, no, that's not real. You cannot be real. The pandemic didn't make it any easier. This was after having lost my mom, like all of this happening, all of these changes in me, like I felt like I had just gotten my footing again. This wonderful gift of a person who came into my life in 2016, who literally saved me again by saying, Eli, you need to get some help. You need to go see someone. Don't call me until you've made that call and you've made that, got that appointment scheduled. Saved my life again. Tightly held my hand down that path. And then the pandemic struck. But here's the thing, the blessing and the curse of the pandemic. Yes, I lost my mother, but you know what? I had lost my mother so many years prior to dementia. Slowly watching her fade away, slowly losing touch with reality. But here's the thing, y'all. I came out to her. I told her who I was. She had already lost a lot of her mental faculties, but here's the most extraordinary gift. The most extraordinary gift is she only misgendered me a handful of times after I came out to her. And she didn't have all of her mental faculties, not like the folks that I was working with, not like the folks out in the everyday life who see me and misgender me all the time. I again had to learn to go inside, to tap into that gift. Going back to the reservation this past August and bringing my mother home was another gift because I connected with my people. And you know what? They treated me just like the bear. They brought me in, they embraced me. They said, welcome home. We've missed you. I was gifted my name in Menominee, Wescuape. I literally made a bundle and I gave it to this man who I found out of conversation that we are literally related to one another by blood. And I had to create this bundle and put these things in it that were pieces of me, wrapped in red. He said, put it in red fabric, tie it off, sleep with it. When you're done and you feel like you're ready, call me and give it to me. Well, I was only going to be there for a week, so I had to expedite this, right? I didn't know how long this was going to take. But I did that. I put it together. I slept with it. I brought it to him. The very next day, he says, I'm ready. I got it. It came to him quickly because he sleeps with it and it comes in his dream. Dreams are very important to my people. We sat down and he told me I needed to prepare a meal that we shared. And we sat in conversation and he says, Wescuape, you are Wescuape. And I said, what does that mean? And he said, he does good things. He sits and listens good. I've never been so immediately seen in my life. I never told him my story about being trans. I didn't have to give him all of that background information. He didn't know that I've been advocating for the LGBTQ plus community literally my entire life because I've always been somewhere along that spectrum. He does good things. That was the gift, right? And now I walk with a confidence so much greater. And people are giving me flowers. People want to know me because of the magnetism that I'm resonating. We all walk very difficult paths, every single one of us. I'm not discounting everyone or anyone's journey. I'm not trying to say my journey was more difficult than yours. That's not it at all. But when we set aside ourselves for a moment and sit with the person in front of us and hear what they have to say to us and be fully present and listen for what we need to tell them back, not to prove anything. Sometimes they may just need to be heard. And if you're unable to do that, tell them up front. I understand that you're suffering. I understand you need someone to help you and hold you and be with you, but I can't be that person right now. But I'll sit with you while you make phone calls to find someone who can be. Right? Do your work. I've been doing mine for 57 and a half years, and I still don't feel like I'm fully cooked. But it's okay. It's okay. Your path is your path, despite what anyone else would try to tell you about it. Your story is your story. There are so many other things that I could tell you all. I can't give you the miracle on how to handle change, but I can tell you if you sit with it, right? And you find those people that you can share your true, authentic self with completely and let them sit with you in it, you will heal. You will find strength. And not everybody's going to meet you on that road, and it is absolutely okay. Absolutely okay. Don't take it personally. They have work to do too.